Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. Now, I've been a colossal fan of the Warhammer 40k lore for a very long time. It has a depth and richness to it that is not really found in many story genres in this day and age. It's also a wildly popular board game whose IP has been dragged through the mud on more than one occasion in the video game market. Now, many recall with dread the horrid offering Storm of Vengeance back in 2013 by Eutechnyx, the same game's developers that brought us the wonderfulness that was Ride to Hell Retribution. Now, since then, several other games have been released carrying the banner of Warhammer 40k, some good and some bad. Well, now we have the most recent offering by Streum On Studio, Space Hulk Deathwing, and no, I don't think I'm mispronouncing the name, it's just spelled really weird. But is this a gift from the Omnissiah or an act of High Heresy against the Emperor himself? Well, that's what we're here to find out. So, make your obeisances to appease the machine spirit as we take a look at Space Hulk Deathwing.
This is the sound of a heartbeat. This is the sound from the discontented mouths of a haunted nation. We are the ones that break it down. Can you hear me? This is the sound of a desperation bound by our own collisions. We are the ones that breaking down.
Now, Space Hulk Deathwing is a first-person Horde Mode shooter set in the Warhammer 40k universe. And just so you guys know, to explain the Warhammer 40k universe itself would take far longer than what would be feasible for the purposes of this review. Suffice to say, you play as a chapter librarian whose fleet has discovered an ancient and lost wreckage. Now, this sets the scene for you and your librarian brothers to gear up in your Space Marine armor and go exploring. Now, on board, you find all sorts of Xenos scum, and you end up battling wave after wave of Tyranids as you discover the fate of this lost Dark Angels chapter.
Armor signal identifies the remains as Brother Magon, a Dark Angel from the earliest days of the Imperium. Along with many brothers, he was lost with the ship Caliban's Will. That must be the vessel we have found. It was one of the cruisers sent back to Caliban with Luther during the Age of Heresy. 10,000 years ago. This confirms our suspicions. We must discover the fate of Caliban's Will, and that of its crew. Brother Epistolary, use your powers to learn what you can of Magon.
Now, the game is 10 primary levels in all, with between 2 and 4 main objectives within each mission. Now, this totals out for approximately 14 to 16 hours of gameplay, which to my mind is, unfortunately, a bit short. Also, the game does not make use of cutscenes whatsoever, and instead makes use of voiceover text and small briefing windows featuring one animated guy, I guess you could say.
Your vision is deeply disturbing, Brother Librarian, and it may be an ill omen for our mission. But our desire to overcome will be as strong as beaten steel. You must identify the location you saw in the death memories of Brother Magon. To do so, place an Augur Primus in the main console of the ship's strategium. Let hate guide your weapons.
Now, the game mechanics are your garden variety Horde Mode squad-based shooter with both single-player and multiplayer modes. And you trundle along in your exceptionally bulky Space Marine armor that, to my mind, actually provides a real sense of how weighty and cumbersome the suits are supposed to be. Also, sporting a wide variety of staple weapons within the 40k universe, you mercilessly mow down the vile Xenos in proper fashion, whether it be with the standard issue bolter or a variety of other either ranged or melee weapons, such as the Vengeance minigun. So I do have to say also that the graphics are, as you probably may have noticed by now, a bit subpar, even for the game that is priced below a AAA title. Now, it's not a super low priced game, it is a $40 title, so I'm expecting a bit more detail out of the game than what we're experiencing here. Low-res textures are used for everything, and they even decided to use film grain in a vain attempt to mask the poor quality of the game's visual assets. Now, this would normally be fine, as I can typically overlook a great deal in this regard, as long as the game runs well. But in case of Space Hulk, this was really not the case. I mean, it's fine for the first hour or so, and then memory leak rears its ugly head, causing the game to become as jerky and glitchy as one can imagine, while maintaining any semblance of functionality whatsoever. The game, of course, reverts to a perfectly playable state once you reboot, but bear in mind that one of the largest oversights that drove me absolutely nuts about the game was its utter lack of the basic functionality of manual saves in any way, shape, or form. Yes, that's right, there are no manual saves or quick saves to be found. You have to rely on objective waypoints to generate autosaves, which, to my mind, are definitely too few and far between, which leaves you starting over at a much further point back than anyone would like if you happen to die, which unfortunately will happen, forcing some segments to be played over and over again to the point of real boredom.
The strange dark angel's beacon conducted us to the corpse of Brother Magon.
Now, in addition to this, when you restart as one normally would after death, it starts you all the way back at the beginning of the level. Not the beginning of the mission, but the entire level, setting you back sometimes half an hour or more. And this is yet one more of the many counterintuitive aspects of the game where you actually have to select a load instead of restart and load the most recent autosave, however far back that might be. Now, also, the game has numerous gameplay glitches. I had several instances where the bolter suddenly had 400 rounds to match the first minigun that you get. Now, that one I didn't really complain about because, hey, I just got a bolter with a 400 round clip. So I simply continued mowing down most of the enemies on the level without a single reload. Except this did happen multiple times. There were also less fun bugs where I used a Cygate to revive my fallen comrades and refill our medi-charges, only to find that when I returned I was suddenly sporting a completely different weapon and not the one that I was wanting for that particular firefight. So, in spite of the bugs and glitches, the game did manage to avoid outright crashing on me, but judging from the performance that I saw within the game, that actually came as more of a surprise than anything else. However, it's not all bad, I do have to say. One thing, the game doesn't have iron sights. When you're aiming, you get a zoom, and it's an ocular zoom. You don't have the iron sight filling up most of the screen, which is not something you see with most first-person shooters, and they are to be lauded to have that. The only other recent game to do something like that is Doom. All the others, you end up filling a third or more of your screen with a damn gun every time you want to aim. This one is very different from that, and it was a refreshing and very welcome change to the norm. The game also did institute a couple of other things very well. I mean, first off, they took the gothic and dark themes of Warhammer 40k and really showed them off here. Even though the visual assets were low texture, they were still oozing with character and personality, and it shows that the art developers of the game had a good grasp of what Warhammer 40k is all about. Also, the sheer size of some of the rooms really gives you a good idea of how truly massive these ships are in the universe as you walk through towering rooms with colossal statues that make you feel somewhat smaller, even though you are this giant juggernaut of a space marine wearing this armor that's like 3 or 4 times the size of a human. And also, this makes for an extremely atmospheric experience as your team marches their way through, destroying Tyranids and other Xenos en masse as they deliver juggernaut dealers of death that they are. And in spite of the huge amount of issues I have with the game, I still have to admit, I had fun with it. At least a little bit. Not a whole lot, but enough, you know. But there's one area that we haven't really covered so much, and that's the multiplayer and the replayability factors. So the multiplayer does offer you some much more intelligent companions for the game's missions, because the AI of your companions are just dumb. They do some of the stupidest shit, and you have to micromanage the hell out of them. So having some actual people there really helps you up your game. And the drawback there is with multiplayer, your character upgrades do not carry over, which leaves you back at square one. And while this certainly isn't the end of the world, it is a frustrating thing that certainly didn't need to be there. Also, the game does really nothing to promote team balance. I mean, hell, 3 heavy gunners can stroll through most of the game without too much of an issue by virtue of simple massed firepower. Also, the game, while having extensive levels, really doesn't leave much by way of replayability. The multiplayer component is ultimately a simple tacked-on module, and I honestly didn't see it maintaining any real player base to make it worthwhile after a few months. By then, it will have lost its luster, and I can't really envision this having too much of a player base. And it really pains me to say it, but the final score for Space Hulk Deathwing is a 5 out of 10. Average. And trust me, guys, I really wanted to give it a higher score here because it's been so long since I've played a good Warhammer 40k game that I desperately wanted this one to be good. Unfortunately, what we got was a poorly textured, buggy mess with a storyline that is bland and forgettable to followers of the lore, and while at the same time being virtually incomprehensible to those that are new to the 40k universe. And the game had flashes of brilliance in there, but that ingenuity and scope was dragged down by so many other aspects that they basically canceled each other out. But thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps one of these days we'll get a 40k game that's truly worthy of the universe the lore is based on. Unfortunately, Space Hulk Deathwing simply wasn't it. Now, before I go, I just wanted to take one last moment to remind everyone to like and share. And if you are new to the channel, please remember to subscribe as well. And this is a moral imperative, as I fear this review may have upset the machine spirits. And we must apply the holy unguents and make supplications in the name of the Omnissiah. So do your parts in the name of the God Emperor and spread news of this review far and wide so that we all will know that we continue to battle the Xeno scum. And thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I am SidAlpha, and I will see you next time. Hi there, boys and girls. Thanks for checking my video out. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit that like button and maybe even that subscribe button. Trust me, it works really good. Don't forget to share with your friends, and if you're interested in following me on Twitter and Facebook, the links for that are in the description down below. I also have a Patreon if you're interested in helping to support the growth of my channel, and the link for that is down below as well. And once again, thanks for watching and supporting my channel, guys. I really appreciate it.